Sometime in the 19th century, Emil Durkheim noticed an increasing amount of suicides. More than a century later, Durkheim's positivist theory of suicide remains the most influential theory in the field. According to Durkheim, there are two major causes of suicide: social integration and social regulation. Social integration involves individuals voluntarily attaching themselves to a group or society of which they are members. Social regulation involves individuals being restrained, constrained, or controlled by a group or society of which they are members. According to Durkheim, people who experience too little social integration, as well as people who experience too much integration, are more likely to commit suicide when compared with those who experience moderate integration. Similarly, those who are subjected to too little social regulation, as well as people who are subjected to too much social regulation, are more likely to kill themselves when compared with those who are subjected to moderate regulation. There are four types of suicide: egoistic, altruistic, anomic, and fatalistic. An egoist has too weak integration and are unable to receive love, affection, or moral support from a spouse and children when deeply frustrated with their lives. An upper-class white male is statistically more likely to commit this type of suicide. An altruist has too much integration. Group needs and significance override individual existence, making it normal to support self-destructive behavior. Suicide bombers are a prime example of this type of suicide. An anomic suicide is generated by too little social regulation. There tends to be a breakdown of social values and norms, or the norms do not make sense. This type of suicide can be seen in a person who has recently lost their job or run into recent economic hardship. Lastly, a fatalistic suicide is produced by too much regulation. Slaves are a historical example. Quote, "For their futures were pitilessly blocked and passions violently choked by oppressive discipline," unquote. Durkheim theorizes that individuals cannot regulate themselves and that regulation needs to come from, quote, "an authority which they respect, to which they yield spontaneously," unquote. The regulatory force must be moral and considered legitimate. Without regulation, we cannot be content with our lives. Without boundaries, limits, or norms, individual life becomes meaningless. Behavior becomes uncontrollable and can produce deviance. Many modern positivist theorists use Durkheim's framework to derive their core concepts.